my name is Misty Grace. I am the founder of Mermaid Motel Media, and I'm a member of the Shoalwater Bay Tribe of Indians. And I am here with Jesse and Adam, and we're going to talk about how film festivals can help you as a filmmaker. So Jesse, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jesse James Hennessy. I'm a filmmaker. I specialize in horror and horror comedies.
Oh, hi. I'm Adam Harum. I'm a writer, director, and editor, currently working at ILF Media here in Spokane, Washington.
Well, wonderful. I'll just get started with these questions. First of all, I wanted to know what tipped you off that you wanted to have a career as a filmmaker? And we'll start with Adam.
I grew up being a writer like crazy from about the age of as soon as I could pick up a crayon to pen to typewriter to computer. And eventually over time, the technology kind of caught up where making what I was writing on paper was actually possible to edit in my basement at home and put on screen for people to watch. And the moment that happened and things like iMovie and Final Cut Pro back in the day became available, I just got absorbed into that. And it wasn't really anything other than a career at that point. So I kind of started being a filmmaker around 10, and that was my life and has been my life since then. So.
Well, awesome. And Jesse, what about you?
Kind of the same thing as Adam too, but fun story. When I was a kid, I actually wanted to be a cop, but then I realized I wanted to be a cop because I loved the Lethal Weapon movies. So then I was like, oh, I just want to do that. I want to make those movies. So that's kind of the start of as a kid, and now I just do it because I love doing it, and it's a lot of fun.
No doubt. And I also want to introduce Allie, and she is joining us on Zoom today. So Allie, if you wanted to introduce yourself and tell us what made you decide to be a filmmaker.
Sure. Hi, I'm Allie Keller. I'm a writer and producer based in New York. I tried everything before the two things I actually wound up doing in filmmaking. I started in dance and theater and ended up all the way here. And I think the, funny thing in my story that's very different from Adam, who knew from the time he was young that he wanted to be a filmmaker, is that I found out I wanted to be a filmmaker after I got my first job on a film set. And I decided to keep doing it and keep producing because I really love bringing other people's stories to life in sort of the fast and insane environment that is a film set.
Well, wonderful. Well, I have a follow-up question, and we can start with Allie and then go back around. What kind of themes or motifs wind up in the stories that you produce or write?
For me, I think the things that I write and produce are really different, and I try to do that on purpose. For me, my writing comes from, it's deeply relationship driven and dark comedies. I kind of describe the stuff I write as things that make you feel really bad for laughing once you realize what's actually going on in the story. And I think producing, I really look for projects that are things that I would never write, or I wouldn't be the right person to write. Because I think as a producer, it keeps me really objective to helping somebody else's story come to life when it's something that I could never write on my own.
Really good. What about you, Jesse?
Themes?
Themes and motifs in your work.
Yeah, well, like I said, I like to do horror comedies, and it's mostly just bad guys versus good guys with lots of blood flying around. That's kind of what I love to do, and I don't go too deep with any kind of messages or things like that. But if you can get one in there a little bit, it's fun. But yeah, that's mostly it. I like to have some fun characters and chainsaw people and things like that. It's just fun.
You like to entertain your audience.
Yes, I definitely like to entertain more than anything, for sure.
I love that. What about you, Adam?
I'm a big fan of genre deconstruction. So kind of why are you experiencing a movie the way you are? Or why does a movie do the things that it does? I really like taking a genre and then twisting it and warping it and breaking it. And then I enjoy that, so it's this wacky, weird deconstruction of it. And then on the other side, I'm a big fan of like sci-fi and how you can use sci-fi elements to kind of put through a theme or an idea that you normally wouldn't in real life.
Yeah.
And in a similar vein to Allie, combining that with comedy and dark is the best way to kind of make that balance. Ups and downs is usually what I enjoy doing.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'll ask another question starting with Allie. What is your creative process like?
That's a really interesting question. I think as a producer, the creative process really starts with meeting the person with the script. And I think signing on to do stuff really depends on what the story is and how excited I am to help this person tell it. And also, if I want to spend a lot of time with this person, kind of the best advice I ever got from another producer was, don't sign on to anything or anyone that you don't want to live with for the rest of your life, because it's such a long haul. So really, the process for me starts with getting excited about a script someone sends to me and meeting with them and going, do I want to spend a ridiculous amount of time with you from development all the way through film festivals and distribution and having this on my resume forever, which is like a really special collaboration. So that's kind of where it starts for me.
What about you, Jesse?
For me, it just really just starts with the script. It starts with that kernel of an idea, and then you write your screenplay, and then some screenplays don't see the light of day and just sit on the shelf forever. And then some you're like, okay, we can go ahead with this one, and then just jump into pre-production and shoot it, post-production, and hopefully after that you have an entertaining flick.
How do you know if something is right for you to start producing or if it's just going to kind of sit and wait?
Usually I'll soundboard it off people. I'll shove it off to some friends or some other collaborators and be like, hey, you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And yeah, it's just getting other people's input too.
Yeah, like an intuition a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure.
What about you, Adam?
I kind of have like two methods. I either start with like a visual image, usually inspired by music, where I like to sit down and go, okay, I'm actually going to come up with something, and I sit there, play music, and get like a visual image, and then kind of build a story or idea around that. And that's like some of the deeper stuff I like to explore. And then the other way I create things is I'll watch a movie, see something really stupid, and go, that's dumb. I need to make fun of that in some capacity or break that apart and point out why that didn't work. And then usually that kind of inspires that other side of the coin, bizarro film production. So.
Oh, wow. Well, fun. Do you ever watch a movie and you find that you really like it, so you want to emulate it and do something like that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think a lot of it is like, not specifically, that idea is great, I'm going to take that.
Right.
But it's like, why did I connect with that so well? And can I do something in a similar vein with my audience or someone else? I'm a big fan of this movie called Swiss Army Man.
Right. Yeah.
With Paul Dano and Daniel Radcliffe. Directed by a duo called The Daniels. And I just like, that's one of my go-to movies for like, that's something I went in and was completely blown away by and said, that is the weirdest movie I've seen in a long time, but it connected to me. Like, is that even possible for me to do something along those lines? So watching a good movie kind of definitely inspires the creative process. Like the more you consume, the more you can break it down and then kind of rehash and try to explore new ideas.
Okay. So do you find that there's like a feeling that you want to give your audience or a tone or an emotion?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, you don't just make a movie for yourself. I think that's a big part of it, but the experience of watching a film, I feel, is kind of a community event and kind of a social thing. So if you're, not trying to say something or connect with your audience in some way, it's kind of that like, well, what's the point then, And so, yeah, I think that I really, really enjoy being able to create something that I can then directly ask someone afterwards, like, what did that make you think about? How did that further your experience? And hopefully the answer is yes. But yeah.
I wanted to ask Allie, how do you use your gifts, talents, and abilities to lift up marginalized voices in your community?
That's a great question. I think it's being really conscious at all times, at all points in the process, from the scripts that I choose to work on. Like, I think it relates to what Adam was just saying about, how is this story trying to connect with people? What is it trying to say? Why is it so important to tell? And in the future, when, stuff is shot and we're pushing out into the world, it's about finding its audiences and its home and who needs to see it, and making sure people know why it's so important. And I also think that part of my job, which is great, is hiring the team and connecting other artists together and being one of the people that can really bring different people from different genders and different backgrounds and different ages and different abilities together to work on one piece, because that's always going to make it better. So it's a really fun position to be in, both by getting more voices heard and more stories told, and also giving more people jobs and an opportunity to tell stories in a different way, from the writing to design to production team, which is awesome.
Well, I have a follow-up to that, because that kind of leads into my next question. What do you look for in a crew and cast for your projects? And we can start with Allie.
I think it's a couple of different things. One is kind of what I was talking about before, which is like, do I want to spend a lot of time with this person? Does the rest of the team want to spend time with this person? I think it's really important to have people who are putting the project first and who are really good and really caring on your team. So a lot of it is just like team dynamics, what makes sense, and who's really excited about the project. And I think oftentimes in indie film too, there's not a huge paycheck that keeps people invested in what they're doing. So people, get paid, and we pay as much as we can, but it's also making sure that people really want to tell this story and knowing why that they're invested in it. Because I think that's what creates the trust and love that you need in a room to make sure it's a positive atmosphere for everyone, so they can do their part of the job as best as they can and create the best product in the end.
Yeah. What about you, Jesse? We were talking a bit before about how some directors have ensembles or acting troupes. Why do you think that directors continuously work with the same actors over and over?
Well, one, you find that they're good, so then you want to keep them around, and two, you get to know them, so you become friends, and then also you start to develop a shorthand with your actor, your crew, that's really valuable. Like, you can just say something and they know what you're talking about when nobody else does. So that's that's the reason for sure.
I know what you mean, because if I tell my director of photography, Trevin, if I say, I need the Anthony Suggs Jr. lighting, then he knows that I want the light to be blue on one side of the face and red on the other side of the face. Yes. And nobody else would get that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What about you, Adam? Do you work with a lot of the same people? What makes you choose your casting crew?
Yeah, there's a core group of folks that I've worked with for going on 12 years now, and a lot of it's just the dynamics, like you guys are saying. You just flow and work well together. And then another aspect of actually building that crew is, as a director, I've always kind of said that 25% of it is working with the actors and getting characters, and the other 75% is actually wrangling and working with your crew. I think that that's just as effective and just as important in making a film as the people in front of the camera, because if the stuff going on behind the scenes isn't working and flowing, that's going to affect what you're capturing and what you want to get. Yeah, so, speaking in terms of both what Jesse's saying and Allie's saying, you spend a lot of time with these people, and you want to both, all be on the same page and work together, and realize that even in a stressful situation, you can get through it, and it's not going to, stop production or anything along those lines. So
oh yeah, definitely.
Just really key.
Yeah. I'm going to direct another question to Allie. What is a film festival, and why do we submit to film festivals?
That is a great question. Film festivals are, a really fun time of a bunch of film nerds getting together to watch films and talk about films. I I think like it's important to apply to those things because there's awards and prizes and opportunities that you get if you place there or selection there, which are great, but almost the more important part of it is attending and meeting the other people there, because I feel like for myself and for the other people that I know, we've mostly gotten other jobs and met other people through like random acquaintances and connections we made sitting next to a stranger watching a movie than off of the like accolades or anything that we've won. So I think it's kind of just like a really big networking event where you get to watch a ton of movies and meet a bunch of cool people that make movies. So it's kind of just like summer camp.
Allie's in New York, and I've worked with Allie because of a film festival, because we know a mutual group of filmmakers. So it's like, even that is a good example of how that connection's kind of worked, and how important they are.
Right. So Allie, you're saying that a film festival is a networking event, it's a community event, and it's also just a time for maybe filmmakers to get together and enjoy each other's work and learn from each other, meet each other, and create new collaborations?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have any stories from any festivals that you've been to where something really cool has come as a result of that?
Yeah, the first film festival that I ever attended was the Austin Film Festival. And I attended with like a play script that I think was the second rounder. And I met someone down there and we got to talking about all the different things that we worked on. And she was from Texas, and her friend, who wasn't attending the festival but lived locally, was writing a musical. And she knew that I had experience working on musicals. And we wound up meeting, and I signed on with that project to be their dramaturg. And it launched like an entire dramaturgy, like freelance thing that I do now for both film scripts and musical scripts and play scripts. And that's something that like you can't plan for when you're going to a film festival, that like a friend of someone in town is going to want to start working with you. But I think that was like it was my first experience, and Austin is amazing. And if you have the opportunity to go, you should, because you meet a ton of people and it's just great. And I've stayed in touch with a lot, but that was sort of like a crazy happy accident that launched this whole other part of my career.
Oh, I love that. Happy accidents. What about you, Jesse? You've been very successful with film festivals. I know Night of the Witch your film Night of the Witch just did very well with the Horror Film Festival circuit and won a lot of awards. How did you plan on getting Night of the Witch into those festivals, and what was the impact of having it in the festivals?
Well, it helps that I know my genre, horror, and specifically like the subgenre horror comedy, and I feel like there's a lot of horror festivals out there, so it's really easy to like hone in on, okay, I'm going to submit it to this horror comedy festival where it'll be more successful probably. I think knowing your genre is a big thing. Like I would think if you were to make like a horror drama, it might have a hard time getting into a horror festival, and it might have a hard time getting into a drama festival because it has different genres.
Sure.
So I just like zeroed in on, that, and then setting aside a budget for your film project for festival fees is definitely something I learned along the way. Like I think we spent somewhere around just $1,000 for like one season run to submit Night of the Witch.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get into all of them either.
Yeah.
And then definitely hitting up your local film fests too, because that's where your cast and crew are more likely to attend and see it on screen and everything.
So it can be a fun community event for everybody in the area that you work with. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that there's some gatekeeping in the film festival world? I mean, if you don't have $1,000 to submit your film, it's just not going to get anywhere in those festivals.
Yeah, I mean, that's true. I think you have to, plan for entry fees, and there's some that are free and there's some that are like $5 and $10, but if you shoot higher, then some get up to like 100 and things like that. But yeah, I mean, there is, yeah,
it's like it's an investment and it's a gamble a little bit, because you don't know if you'll get in or get your money back.
Yeah, totally.
So, but it's worth it?
I think so, yeah. I think definitely when you find the festivals that you get into that really love your film, and then getting awards feels great.
Sure.
Maybe it shouldn't as much as it does, but like, yes, I feel validated, all this work, because I got this plastic trophy. I mean, something about a trophy just feels awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And, especially like your whole cast and crew, when they get awards and they see that people enjoy their hard work is, being paid off. So it validates your work.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Nice. What do you think? What's the purpose of a film festival besides maybe validating your work and finding connections? Is there anything more to it?
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's been saying. I think another aspect too that you get only from film festivals is really an immediate reaction to your work, and just like whether or not what you're trying to do is working. Yeah, like, oh, do people find that funny? Do they not? Are they actually feeling emotion here, or are they laughing? Because they probably shouldn't be laughing here. It's just an immediate response and feedback. And that's honestly, one of my favorite things about going to festivals. Outside of meeting the amazing people and connecting, actually being able to sit in the room in the dark and actually hear people react to what you've put on screen is pretty incredible. I remember my short film Lifeline toured around, and I went to the Tacoma Film Festival and specifically played in a block of films just about death. Oh. So it was about 2 hours of just themes about death. Oh. And my film is a dark comedy, but it was that like after an hour and a half of like really intense dark films, suddenly there was a little levity, and every aspect of comedy that I had in that film was suddenly like amplified and amazing for people and such a relief. And it's like those kind of experiences where you go, oh, okay, like what I put on screen, what I wrote is actually connecting with people, and you're seeing their emotions in real time react to it is pretty incredible feeling, just experience.
Yeah, I really agree with that. That's a lot of fun, going to theaters and having the audience watch your film. Yeah. And they're laughing in places where like, oh, okay, this is good.
Like the joke worked.
Yeah, or they're laughing in places you didn't expect, or there's no reaction to places where you're expecting some. So it informs like what you do in the future too. Yeah. Audience is great.
So you recalibrate your process based on your feedback from the live audience.
Yeah.
Okay.
Test screenings.
Test screenings, sure.
Yeah, it's true, because I mean, it's a big difference between a bunch of people who don't know you personally reacting to your film, or showing someone and then looking at them and saying, what do you think? Because they will not be honest with you, and that's just the truth.
Eyes locked.
Your best friend is going to say, it's great, and then they'll go home and be like, oh. But, an audience that doesn't know you, and even some of my favorite stuff is just hearing reactions from an audience member that doesn't realize you made the film. Yeah. And just hearing what they have to say, because they're not going to hold anything back. And that's just amazing feedback.
Do you find, Allie, that audiences need your work, or that there is something in your work that really reaches out to audiences?
Yes, I hope so. Anyway, I think, I think in terms of my writing, I try to write things that are things that I haven't seen, and what I'm looking at producing are stories that I feel like very much need to be told. I have a film that's going to be in the Sarasota Film Festival starting at the end of the week that I produced called In Defense of Civil Society by Rafe Mahmoud. And it's this like super funny, super dark, surrealist look at when America is fully run by a company that has incorporated terrorism and what it's like to immigrate here during that time. And it's something that's like, I remember reading the early version of the script and being like, I don't care if this becomes a miniseries, I don't care if it becomes a film, I don't care if it's a short, like this should be out in the world and people should be seeing it. And thankfully, in the festivals we've been in so far, and hopefully that continues, I haven't seen an audience, even virtually, that hasn't responded in that way, that it's just like, this is a really cool way of talking about this, and it's something that we should be talking about right now.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Jesse? What does your work do for your audience?
Like you were saying, it entertains them. That's like my main goal, is to like entertain people, for sure. Yeah, make people laugh and smile and have a good time. Yeah, that's my favorite part about going to the movies, is just forgetting the world and just be entertained for a few hours. Yeah. So that's what I try to do.
Especially during a pandemic, it feels like filmmakers have really helped us all through the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you?
Twofolds. Again, I'm always in like a split mind on work. I really, philosophically really want people to connect and try and rethink, and learn new things from my work, and present new ideas. And on the other hand, a lot of my work is hopefully forcing people to look at film in general and realize that there's a lot of bad stuff out there, and that they should just give them a new look at like genre and what they're enjoying. And in a weird way, I'm hoping that they demand better from filmmakers and can say like we need this. I want to emotionally connect, and like that's what we desire. Is entertainment and thinking, and just like all of this combined. So any time that I can push people into saying like, think about what you're watching and how you connect on it, whether that's just a pure entertainment, fun, enjoyable time, or something, on a deeper level. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I have another question. Would you say, Allie, that film festivals are an essential part of your creative process and output?
Yeah, I think, definitely as a producer, like film festivals are the thing to get your shorts and features and pilots and stuff out into the world. And I think just like what we were talking about, it's so important to get those audience reactions, and it's important for networking, and it's also important producerially for finding your audience and finding your fans and reaching back out to them when you have something else, and building that following and telling more stories. So yeah, I think especially for a producer, they're like essential. That's like so much of your job after post-production is done. But I think for everyone, you learn a lot about your audience and who's really responding to you and who will keep responding to you and your stories in the future.
Makes a lot of sense. What about you, Jesse?
What was the question?
Are film festivals essential to your output as a creator?
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. It's like we've been talking about. It's one of the main ways to get your work out there and get people looking at it. And then social media upkeep is something that I haven't really talked about too with film festivals, and that's a lot of work. Like when you get into a film festival, they'll usually make a whole bunch of posts and stuff, so you have to comment on that, like it, share it on all of your platforms, and you rinse and repeat and do that with every other film contest that's going on. So it's a lot of social media and producing after the fact, like a lot of upkeep for sure. Right,
because you're supporting the festival by sharing their posts, by liking, by commenting, and by sending your audience to go to the festival and the other social media.
For sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's just supporting each other.
I need a social media manager. So
okay.
Anybody out there, just that'd be cool.
Put that out into the universe. Yeah. What about you, Adam?
I think it's majorly essential. Honestly, I think that people think that when you're done filming the movie, you're done and you can walk away, and really that's where the harder work starts. You don't want to just pour your heart and soul and all these people's time into a project that you truly want people to watch and then not have people watch. And especially in a world where, there's a YouTube video going up every 2 seconds and a short film being produced, getting seen is getting a little bit harder and harder, and being able to go to a film festival that you can fully support and meet the people you need to meet to continue working, but also just, putting it in a spot where people can actually experience it and enjoy it the way that you want, is really essential to just being a filmmaker, in my opinion, and creating the work in the first place. So yeah, it's very essential, and it is, like Jesse's saying, it's you get the movie done and you go, cool, all right, new hat, here we go. Now it's this next huge stage of production.
Wow, that's crazy. So what might stop someone from getting their work into a film festival? What are the errors that someone might make that would make a film not be able to really do a festival run?
I think Jesse kind of mentioned earlier, know your genre, know what it is you've created. You don't want to submit something to a horror film festival that's not actually a horror movie. I think the pitfalls too is the assumption that every big film festival out there is willing to just accept your work. Like, I think the biggest, most hilarious thing in my mind ever is just the fact that people go, oh, I've made a short film, now I'm ready to submit to Sundance. And you're like, that's not how that's not how this works. And also, there's a million other festivals that would probably be perfect for your work, but you're stuck and hung up on this one festival. And if you get a rejection from that, I've seen way too often people like, I've submitted to a couple, I got rejected, I guess I'm done. And you're like, well, no, like, that's gonna happen. Like, 90% of what you submit to is probably just gonna get a no. And it's not because your work isn't good enough, or that it might not be the best, or that your movie isn't great. It might just be a simple matter of, well, your film didn't fit into the theme this year, or it doesn't really fit in our schedule. So yeah, know your genre, and then just keep in mind that there are literally thousands of festivals, and out of those thousands of festivals, there are film festivals designed for your short. You just gotta find them. You gotta put the work in to find them.
For sure.
Okay. What do you think, Allie? What could be some pitfalls of a film that would make it ineligible for festivals?
Yeah, I think the first biggest pitfall that I think happens to people, especially if you're making a short film, is it should be short. A lot of festivals say, 40 minutes or under, but it's easier to program 10-minute shorts than it is to program a 40-minute short, because you can program more shorts when they are shorter. And it's also just, if you can tell a great story in 40 minutes, that's impressive. If you can tell that same story in 10 minutes, that's super impressive. So I think too, part of the pitfalls of film festivals starts in kind of that writing and editing phase of the actual project. And then I think, like Adam was saying, there's so many festivals out there. You won't be right for all of them, but there are going to be a ton that are right for you. And a lot of that is research. It's both where these festivals are, what they're showing, what they haven't been showing, who their audiences are, and looking at what you want. I think there's a strategy to applying to festivals about what's most important to you to get out of it. And you kind of have to decide if that's, trying to go for representation, or trying to get it in front of as many eyes as possible, or trying to get into certain kinds of festivals. So I think there's a lot of decisions to be made, and almost starting to think about that in pre-production and as you're shooting, once you really know what the project is so helpful to all the stuff we were talking about before, about building your festival budgets and all of this stuff, rather than at the end when you're totally fried after post-production, you finally got the movie done, you go, oh my God, where am I supposed to put it now? And you just start applying, because that's, I think, the teams I've been on that have done that, and I've learned as we've gone along, you get very depressed very quickly because you're not thinking about it in a smarter way, and you're kind of, it starts to feel like you're throwing money away. And I think if you really do the research as painstaking as it can be, sometimes you yield a lot better results. So it doesn't have to be as painful as it sometimes is.
That's good advice. What do you think, Jesse?
It's really what everybody, Allie and Adam, have been saying about film festivals, and definitely what Allie was saying about, keep your short film short.
Yeah.
I've learned that along the way. Like, I made a short film that was not a short film. It was like an hour and something long. And now I look at it and I can cut that down to 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I definitely think keeping your short film under 15 minutes for film festivals is a must. Like she was saying, some of them have like 30-minute or 40-minute run times, but keep it down. Yeah, for sure. And then, the accepting rejection too. You're not going to get into everything. It's just like actors when they're auditioning and they get turned down for lots and lots of roles, and it's not because they're a bad actor. It's just, you might not be right for the part. And it's just the same thing with entering into film festivals.
Right, you have to be resilient, because that's something that directors really look favorably upon, or probably film festivals as well. Just keeping on trying.
Yeah. And then usually, sometimes when you get into one film festival and your film does good, next one you make, you're more likely to get into it because, oh, hey, they did this one, let's throw it in.
Right, that makes sense. Well, I have one last question before we go to any audience questions, which are, for those in the audience, what are the first steps to submitting to festival competitions? Adam?
Oh, first steps. Kind of what we said. Know your genre, know length, like know where you will fit. And what Ali mentioned was great, is see other films that have been accepted. I think that there's a desire to just submit willy-nilly and not actually look at what the festival's about, or like look at previous years or previous winners, is like huge. Is you don't just say, oh, that looks like a big festival, send off. Do the research, because it might just be an immediately apparent thing that, oh, this festival's not going to accept my film. Not only that, but like prepare, especially if you have a budget overall, prepare within your budget. The film festival submissions should just be a part of your budget plan. It shouldn't be this thing that suddenly comes out of nowhere. It should definitely be, if I actually want to get this out there for people to see and I want to submit it eventually to film festivals, I have to keep in mind that there is a budget for that, and it should be incorporated from the beginning on. So kind of those initial steps.
Okay, that makes sense. Ali, what do you think?
Yeah, I think everything that we're talking about is such great first steps. And I also think both for your budget, and because some film festivals start reviewing and accepting things immediately as things roll in and some don't, make a little calendar for yourself. It is always cheaper and better to apply early deadline than late deadline. And sometimes that like the festival that impacts programming, but just for you and the money that you're spending, it will always be cheaper to do it sooner. So after you kind of do all this research and you have your film in a good length in a good place, make like a calendar of when all those early deadlines are, so that you aren't spending $20 extra here and there on a bunch of submissions because you missed it by like a day or two.
Smart, that's good advice. And Jesse, what do you think? Does a creative person become more like a business person when they're submitting to festivals?
Yeah, I think so, for sure. Yeah, I think like one of the first steps you should do is just organize all of your media and put together a media and press package. Like you throw together your film with different versions, your trailer, your movie poster, any promo art, behind the scenes photos, bios, synopsis of your film, and have that ready to go. So then you don't have to deal with that. Like then you can submit to film festivals, you can send it off to media outlets. I think that's a really good first step to keep in mind too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really smart.
Totally.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
Here's some questions from our on our chat. The first question: do the panelists have a favorite film festival that they could recommend, or one that they would recommend?
I totally do. I have a couple, but if we're talking somewhat locally in Washington, the Tacoma Film Festival, my short played there. Like really, really great audience, just really great people, just really nice, great venue, and it was just super interactive as far as them setting up places for you to actually go and gather and talk to other filmmakers. It's probably the best my film has ever looked on screen too. But yeah, totally could recommend a lot, but that one immediately came to mind for me, Tacoma Film Festival.
Yeah, I think like regionally, Crypticon is really cool in Seattle. They showcase a lot of short horror films, big major horror films, and there's a lot of stars there doing signings. So if you happen to get your film into there, it's like an event. So you spend the weekend doing a whole bunch of cool like horror and film things. Bleedingham is another cool one that's kind of regionally. They're a fun little horror group. And I think locally, if it's still going, the North by Northwest Horror Film Fest, they didn't do it this year because of COVID, but they've done it for a couple of years, and that's fun to see local horror films. Good group of people too.
Yeah, absolutely. Ali, what do you think?
I haven't really hit a bad festival yet, but I think there will always be, because it was my first one, there will always be a special place in my heart for Austin. And especially if you've never attended a film festival before, that one's great, because they have like a panel that starts immediately on the first day of the festival that is like how to do film festivals. And it's super informative, and they hold your hand through what this huge, expansive festival is. So I would recommend that one for like first timers, especially.
Great. Another question is, so there are a lot of large and small festivals. Is there somewhere where our viewers could go and get a list and start doing their own research?
You know, I think the main go-to is the Film Freeway website.
Yeah.
It's that's I think a lot of filmmakers use that. It's you just upload your info like Facebook, and then you upload all of your project info, and from there you can search thousands and thousands of film festivals nationally and around the world. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my recommendation too. Film Freeway is great. Without a Box is another site that is really great too.
Okay. And the last question then is actually, what is the hardest thing you had to do on a production?
Cut out a scene that I loved. I think that's the hardest thing I've had to do with the film is you have this really great scene, you shoot it, and everything works. It's really good. People have a fun time with it, and you love it. And you get in the editing room, and it just doesn't fit with your film, the flow of your film. So you're like, okay, I got to cut this to make the film as a whole better. So dropping scenes sucks.
I can agree with that. Hardest thing on a production, that's a tough one. I've been through a lot. I think I ran a sci-fi web series for a while, and I had to act in front of the camera and be behind it, and I just never want to do that again. That's just a nightmare in general, being able to unfocus on what everyone else needs. So.
And Allie, what about you?
I think the hardest thing I've ever had to do during a shoot is actually the shoot that I met Adam on, which it was so fun. It was so fun. But at this moment in time, I was so deprived of sleep because we were shooting a superhero mockumentary in upstate New York with like 50 people that we trucked up there. We were doing simultaneous locations. We were doing like 14-hour days, and like it was so much fun. But I was like already on hour like 27 of my life, and I was heading to dinner at like 1 o'clock in the morning and realized that no one had cooked the food we needed for this big gala scene that we were going to start shooting like very early the next morning. And I had to, like, the person who was driving me over to dinner, I had to have them like turn the car around so I could go start cooking this stuff so we would have it in time. And Adam very graciously was one of the people who like came over as I was like sleep deprived and running ovens in someone's house, and just kind of like kept talking at me so I would stay awake and get this done so we could make our day the next day.
So many pizza rolls. It was so
many pizza rolls.
All right, well, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Allie, Jesse, and Adam for being on our panel, and Juan. And thanks to everyone who tuned in. We're going to be having the writing panel next, so we'll see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, guys, thank you very much for being here. Yes, like Missy just said, this will continue. We're going to now focus at looking at festivals as writers. But before that, we got a couple announcements. First of all, if you're new to seeing our programs and you don't know what a Spokane Film Project is, Spokane Film Project is a nonprofit organization who's focusing on helping develop and shape our digital content community here in the Spokane area, where it's a networking facility. It's a free membership. It doesn't cost anything to be part, but it's a way to connect to the industry here in town. We work at all different levels, from features, television shows to shorts, and supporting the community. There's a great, once you become a member, you're able to be on a group page where if things come up, if you have questions, or you're looking for gear or a location, or you need any kind of help, you drop that question in there, and the SFP membership jumps in and starts giving you advice and helping you find your answers. We're also, if you're not a member, we'll ask you to go to our website, and a slide will come up, and you'll see our link there, and there's where you can apply to become a member. and the membership committee will take a look at it and then get back to you, and then you'll get access to the group page. Other things that the SFP has, we have a committee that it focuses on education, like this one, and community impact. We have one that focuses on our communications and social media. So there are a lot of ways for you to be involved in the organization. It's all up to you on how much you want to be involved and get the best benefit as possible. And again, it's for free. There's no cost. And also, remember, we are a nonprofit and we don't charge our members. So any support that you can get us as a nonprofit, please, on there is a donate button on our website as well. Last thing is on Sunday, tomorrow, the Spokane Film Club has, Spokane Film Project has a film club for members, and they are going to be watching a feature, and a slide will tell you right now. It is tomorrow and the time, and that'll be tomorrow, and you can watch that via a link if you're a member on our group page and also on our webpage. All right, we're gonna give us just a second here. We're gonna do a little advertisement for CMTV, our partners here, and their academy coming up while we swap a couple chairs and do a little COVID stuff. Thank you.
everyone. We are back with Matthew Weaver and Malcolm Pellis, who are two wonderful writers in our community, to continue our panel on film festivals. So the first question, let me have you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work. We can start with Malcolm.
Oh, sure. Again, my name is Malcolm Pellis. I'm a playwright and a filmmaker, and I'm also a professor. I teach screenwriting at Eastern Washington University.
Oh, wow. What about you, Matthew?
Matthew Weaver. I'm a playwright, a screenwriter, a novelist, a poet, and by day I work for an agriculture newspaper.
Wonderful. Well, I would like to ask, what is the first thing that you tell your screenwriting students when they first start your class?
I tell them to write personal stories and stories from the heart, because once they leave my class, they're going to be selling their soul for the rest of their lives.
And what does that mean, to sell yourself through your work?
I'm half joking, but as a professional writer, you can be writing for other people, and so there might be some compromises in your personal vision as a writer.
Sure.
So it's kind of a joke, but there's some truth in it. My class is a time where you can just kind of write from your heart and, kind of execute your vision. Yeah.
For sure. Matthew, what about you? Tell me about your work.
I kind of tend to be kind of quirky, hopefully sincere, heartfelt, just kind of oddball, but light and also hopeful.
Right. So your work is often acted out in multiple different theaters. I remember seeing one about Jonah that was really exciting. Tell me about that a little bit. What's it like to have actors play out your work?
It's exciting. We were talking beforehand about, as the writer, you kind of get used to, you just write in your room and then you send it somewhere and then you never hear anything more from it. But so then to actually have people take your work and hopefully care about it as much as you do, or even more so, to the point where the whole process, it becomes something bigger than just yourself or bigger than all the individuals involved. Everyone cares about it, and it becomes, the whole becomes greater than the sum of the parts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Do you have a specialty as a writer or a genre that beckons you the most, Malcolm?
I'm primarily probably a screenwriter, and I write kind of dramedies, crime narratives, that sort of thing. But yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Kind of the comedy as well. I've been kind of dabbling with drama a little bit. I'm at that stage where I like to play. I like to stretch myself. I'm like, okay, what if this happened? And try to challenge myself, just either like by writing a 1-minute play a day, a 10-minute play a day, or just I liken it to it's spaghetti. I'm still cooking spaghetti, throwing it against the wall, and we'll see what sticks.
And we also have another person on named Allie. Hi, Allie. Welcome back.
Hi. Welcome, hi. I do dark comedies for the most part, whether that's for plays or for screen. And in the last couple of years, I've gotten a lot of jobs on musicals, both on stage and on screen, so like dark musical comedies.
Oh, well, wonderful. So I'm really curious. I'm a writer as well, and I started writing when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I'm curious what other people's process was when they first started writing, how that ended up happening for you. And we can start with Allie.
I was not one of the people who was lucky enough to realize it when they were younger, to the point where I had an internship my junior year of college, and they said I should try writing, and I said no. So I was not one of the people that knew from a young age. And I initially started writing because I thought I wanted to be a director, and I wanted to be able to develop new plays and speak the language of writers. And through that, really realized that I had my own stories to tell, and that's really what I love to do.
Oh, wonderful. What about you, Malcolm?
Well, let's see. um, I've been writing since I was a kid, 7, 8, and I think when I was 11, I decided I wanted to be a filmmaker. Anyway, I went to Florida State University for undergrad and did their film school. Then for grad school, I got my MFA at NYU Tisch School of the Arts in dramatic writing. Hung out in New York for a while and worked for this video game company called Gameloft for about a year or two. Got involved with a lot of theater. Had a play that was off Broadway. That was fun. Then I did industrials for a while, corporate video, stuff like that. And so I did industrials. I did industrials for the NFL, the U.S. Army, National Institute of Health. Then I went to L.A. And so in LA, they have all these, the different studios and networks have all these kind of like initiatives to foster talent. And so I got involved with one of those. CBS has this thing called the Diversity Sketch Comedy Showcase that they do every year. So I wrote for that. And then also, and I think we're going to talk about like contests and stuff like that at some point maybe. There's this contest out there that's kind of a, it's kind of a big deal called the Humanitas New Voices, and so I was a finalist in that. And so all these opportunities kind of shaped me as a writer and kind of put me in some really cool, gave me some cool opportunities.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds like the opportunities were there and you were ready for them and ready to go after them.
Sure. And sometimes I wasn't ready, but but lucky enough things lined up at the right times that I got to benefit from some of that stuff.
Yeah, like they found you, you found them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure, yeah, maybe. Yeah, what do you think, Matthew?
About?
How did your career as a writer begin?
Well, I always wanted to be a storyteller, but kind of really kicked off once I moved back to Spokane. I had worked for the Moses Lake paper there for about 5 years and would do reviews and advances for the Soap Lake Theater. And so once I moved back home, I decided I'm going to write a play. I'm going to write a full play. I'm going to finish a project. Yeah. And so I sent it to the people that I had kind of gotten comfortable with and said, I wrote a play. Tell me what I did wrong. And one of the directors got back to me and he said, can I show this to our artistic director? I said, sure. And then a couple weeks later, she called and she said, can we put this on? And I'm like, sure. So my very first play, full-length play, got 9 performances, 2 hours away. I went with my family. We drove the 2 hours for opening night and every Sunday matinee. Opening night, I got there and all of a sudden I'm like, there's a red curtain. I wrote a play. Oh my gosh, if this play is bad, we're stuck here for 2 hours. And then the curtain went up and the actors came out. They started singing their lines. I was like, oh, okay, they've got it. It was just, it was like a roller coaster, but like the best possible roller coaster. It was life affirming. I'm like, this is what I want to do. And such a great experience though. Like my 2nd grade teacher was in the audience that first night and she got a little shout out. So it was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And since then have gone on. I've been produced in 26 states. I'm writing all the time. I'm just trying to, like I said, it's that spaghetti thing. I'm seeing what I'm capable of.
Wow, I love that. And your writing creates a lot of opportunities for other people to act out in their gifts as actors of all different ages and backgrounds.
Yeah, I try to lift everyone up, hopefully, as everyone comes together and be like, okay, you did this. What happens if I do this? Or is there something you've always wanted to try, and how can I help achieve that vision for you?
Wow, very cool. So Allie, do you have a specialty as a writer or a genre that beckons you the most? I know before you were talking about maybe dark comedy.
Yeah, I think dark comedy tends to beckon me the most, whether that's on stage or on film. And I, can't sing to save my life, but I grew up loving musical theater, and I have been lucky enough to stumble into a lot of musical theater work, and that is something that I love, and I definitely want to continue.
Wonderful. And you like to do crime, is that right?
Well, dramedies, and so, but oftentimes they end up being crime narratives. Yeah.
How do you find community partners to collaborate with?
It's a good question. I think that it's really important to find your tribe wherever you are, and so some of it's trial and error. But, I've moved around a lot, and so it started from zero a lot. And so some of it is just, going to events, meeting people, going to shows. I mean, as writers, we're all fans of plays and movies and events. So, start off as a fan and go to these events and meet people. And I think from there, you meet like-minded folks, and then hopefully projects develop from there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. What about you, Matthew? How do you find community partners to collaborate with?
Yeah, it has to develop naturally. I find you can't, like, if you go and you're like, I am here, but I mean, it's the people that you can sit with and you can be like, oh my gosh, the thing you wrote, that was so fantastic.
Right.
And how did you come up with that? I'm so mad you came up with that because
Right.
and then, and I'm always trying to like connect people I like with other people like too. Like just this week, I introduced two of my best friends online to each other. I was like, you need to know each other. And then I just hopefully get to sit back and be like, okay, you guys make something, I'm going to watch and just enjoy. And then hopefully get to play too at some point.
Yeah, no doubt. And what about you, Allie?
Yeah, I think through meeting people at events, through meeting people at shows, and introductions of people. But I think like all the best collaborations kind of come out of the same like cliche dating advice that people give you, where it's like you'll find love when you stop looking for it. Like the best collaborations are like the mutual friend who's like, I think you guys should meet. And you can't plan for it. Or like you happen to talk to somebody after a play who's a total stranger and you end up developing a friendship and then working together and those kinds of things. So I think it's the best ones come organically.
Yeah, no doubt. And Allie, I'll start with you. What is the point of submitting your work to script writing competitions?
This is going to sound very strange, but I think the best thing, honestly, is the rejection and like ripping off the Band-Aid, because not everything is going to sell, not everything is going to be amazing, but just the muscle of submitting what you have when it's in a solid enough place to a bunch of places, I think reinforces your confidence as a writer, because you can get rejected from 50 and win one. And it reminds you that it's not about like, oh, I can't be a writer, this festival didn't accept me. It's about this one is my audience. So rejection in a not way.
What do you think, Malcolm?
That's an interesting question. So it kind of depends on kind of how you want to approach your career. And so if you want to be part of kind of like mainstream kind of Hollywood, like The Machine, right? There's probably like a handful of ways to actively work towards that, right? And so contests can be a way, okay? And there's like a handful of contests that are kind of big deals. Nichols, Final Draft has one. There's a couple others. And if you do well in those competitions, you could, get representation or meet producers and things of that nature. So they do have their purpose, but to Allie's point, I mean, some of these competitions, there's thousands of people submitting and they're only picking, a few finalists. And so it's like, you do the numbers, do the math, and it's like 1%. But, but I think it's worth, kind of putting yourself out there. Also, in a weird way, competitions and contests, they give you deadlines. So it's like they force you to finish something, right? And so they give you a discipline. And so I remember at different times in my life as a writer, friends, we would always, kind of plan our yearly schedule around competitions and fellowships, right? And so like June, May is like a big time for competitions and fellowships, especially fellowships for like different TV like networks and stuff like that. And so, you hold each other accountable and say, did you write your script for these fellowships or these contests, and it always guaranteed that you come up with a new feature or a new pilot every year. And so, in a weird way, that it has its usefulness in that way as well.
Oh, yeah. What about you, Matthew? You submit a lot to everywhere.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I read an article that said collect the rejection. So kind of like you've been saying, and it kind of changed my thinking of it because no one likes to get rejected. You're like, oh man, and it breaks your heart. But it was like, okay, so I set the goal for myself to try to average a submission a day for the year. So if I hit 365, I consider myself a success. Anything over that is like woohoo, happy. And then any acceptances are just icing on the cake. I'm collecting, like I'm making sure I'm submitting. I call it, it's kind of like Benjamin Franklin. I'm out there, I've got the kite, I've got the string, and I'm sending up key after key after key. And any one of those keys is a possibility for lightning to strike just right. So I'm trying to get as many keys up on the string and still keep the kite flying.
Wow, I love that analogy.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, to follow up with that, how have these writing competitions increased your visibility to the public?
Well, I try to tout myself. I tout my friends, but I try to tout myself a little bit. So when you do have a success or even a failure that's particularly interesting, I'll post it on my social media and just say like, hey, okay, I didn't get this one, but they said something very nice, or hey, I've been accepted to this. And so my friends are like, you're getting produced all the time. And I'm like, that's because I'm not telling you about the rejections. But it starts to look pretty good after a while. And so they're like, you're doing really well. My whole goal, I think the last 5-6 years has been slowly get a little more on the radar. Not again, it has to develop naturally. I'll still pursue opportunities, but I'm also finding that some of those opportunities, the people involved, they're starting to be like, I saw you were involved in this. What else do you have? Or hey, could we work together on something or something like that? And so it's slowly, yeah.
Yeah, I see. Allie, what about you? How have writing competitions increased your visibility to the public?
Yeah, I think very similarly, you post about everything that you have going on and meeting more people. And something that I like to do too is the friends and other people I meet through these competitions and festivals is to continue to post about their success. And if I saw something at a festival that I love, to post about them too. And not, again, like you can't plan for this and it's not motivated by this, but I think people then are inclined to post about what you're doing if you post about them. And and we can all kind of build each other up by posting about the artists that we love that maybe you haven't heard of yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So am I hearing that film festivals also have a screenwriting aspect to them?
Yeah, some of them do. I guess one of the more famous ones is the Austin Film Festival. They have a big kind of writing competition. There used to be this thing at a lot of film festivals. They used to have pitch events where you go and they have competitions, and whoever pitched the best idea won an award. And sometimes part of their award would be that you meet an agent or have meetings and stuff like that. I'm not sure if they do that as much, but film festivals. I think are underrated kind of resource and kind of thing that screenwriters should do. Go to film festivals, hang out, you'll meet producers, you'll meet directors. I know that even if you don't have a film there, I think it's important to just go. And film festivals are fun anyway, but yeah.
Okay, I love that because you kind of get to see what other people are doing and what they're making and where you fit in.
Yeah, no. So when I was in film school in Florida, every year we go down to the West Palm Film Festival. It's kind of a mid-size kind of regional film festival and stuff like that. But there's a lot of these regional film festivals. They always have like a star, like maybe a B or C actor, and that's awesome. I mean, the year I went, or one of the years I went, Amanda Plummer was there, and that was really cool, and we got to meet her. And but also you just meet other filmmakers, and it's just it's a lot of fun, but also it's a way for kind of film geeks to meet each other, and maybe even down the road have a relationship, a working relationship. So.
Oh, I love that. Matthew, I wanted to talk to you about how disciplined you are as a writer. How do you write a script a day and submit every day? How does that happen?
Well, I tried to do a half hour a day, and that was because like I knew I wanted to write, but I had the day job, and after writing for 8 hours a day, the last thing you want to do is write more. But it was getting hard to go to bed at night because it's like, oh, I'm not doing what I really want to be doing. I mean, I'm paying the bills, which I appreciate the bills being paid, but so really the half hour was so I could go to bed and be like, okay, I did a little bit for me. For the next day, I did a little bit to advance me. And I go back to Steve Martin, the actor, comic, banjo player. When he first started playing the banjo, he played a little bit and he said to himself, I'm not very good, but I bet if I do this a little bit every day, I'll get better. And in 50 years' time, he's selling out concerts and things like that, and he's like a very accomplished banjo player. So it's kind of that same thought process. For myself, so when I go to bed, and sometimes it's right before bed, it's like, oh man, or it's like, okay, I need to still write my play for today, or do my half hour of writing. I will get up out of bed and do it, and then go to bed. But it works better if you get it done early in the day, because I always feel better once I'm done writing than having it hang over your head, but it doesn't always work that way. And then if I know for sure there's going to be like a busy week coming up or something like that, I will try to write in advance if I can, or try to make it up. And sometimes I figure, sometimes you do have to forgive yourself. You're like, all right, you know what, it's not happening this week, forgive yourself. It'll all even out in the end, it'll average out, you'll hit a groove. So at least a half hour a day. But I give myself permission if I really hit a groove or don't want to lose where I'm at, I'll keep going. But usually a half hour, that's about enough. And you can sneak it too. You can be like 2 15s, 3 10s, 10 3s throughout the day. So even if you're busy, it's when you're sitting down and you're looking at that blank piece of paper, you're like, oh my God, 30 minutes is going to take forever. But by the end, you're like, okay, that worked. And it doesn't have to be good either. It just has to get done. And slowly it will get better. But sometimes it's like, this is awful, this is garbage, this goes in the fire, but it got done today. So tomorrow will be better, hopefully.
Absolutely. Yeah, no one ever needs to read it.
Right,
Until,
no one will
until
know.
It's time. No one will know. I love that. What about, Allie, what about you? How do you stay disciplined as a writer?
I am not naturally a morning person, so this is going to sound very insane as I say it, but I trained myself to get up between 4 a.m. and 5 a.m. every day to write. And it's for two reasons. One is because if I have emails coming in and text messages coming in, I will answer them. I can't, like the little notification things, like I can't ignore it. So the time when no one is contacting anyone is at 4 a.m. So I will not be distracted by anything. And the other thing is, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not going to be great. There's going to be typos galore. There's just like no judgment on what's coming out at that time. And then I feel like it relieves the pressure of having to do it later in the day for me. So I kind of start the rest of my day after that feeling accomplished and I got my writing done. And it's the same thing. It was like, doesn't have to be good. No one ever has to see it.
Yep.
But it is done and I can answer all the emails as they roll in.
Right, because you can't edit what you haven't written, and you can always improve it later, but it has to somehow get onto the page first. Okay. Do you have any favorite writers who inspire you?
Ooh, a lot. In terms of plays, August Wilson's a big influence. This writer in New York named Adam Rapp is a big influence. Neil LaBute's a big influence. A little bit of Mamet. I'm a big Aaron Sorkin guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Spike Lee stuff I like a lot. There's this guy, Carl Franklin, who wrote Devil in a Blue Dress. The movie is good. So yeah, they're kind of all over the place, but yeah, I have a few. Yeah.
Okay, so you have a sort of style that you like in other writers that you sort of emulate at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think the thing I look for in writers, the things that excite me about writers is how they express characters' thinking. I'm also more and more I've gotten interested in writers who have used silence
Oh, yeah.
which is, yeah, you know, kind of maybe counterintuitive or thinking when you think about dialogue, you know, but that's been really kind of interesting to me. You know, I pay attention to rhythms a lot.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time I used to write sketch comedy, and so to me rhythm is important both in comedy but also just you know in dialogue writing in general. And so I pay attention to writers that have a musicality and rhythm to their writing, and I think that that's exciting.
Right. So you can like find your own unique voice
Yeah.
through reading other people as well, sort of.
Sure. No, yeah. And you know, probably when I was younger, I copied a lot, and that's fine. You know, and maybe I still copy a lot, right? But I do think you can kind of borrow, because to me, after a while, it just becomes you know, kind of a overall vocabulary.
Right.
So, you know, the way this writer uses pauses or ellipsis, or this writer uses, you know, kind of fragmented, you know, kind of, you know, sentences, one-word sentences, you know, how this writer kind of repeats, you know, the characters repeat themselves over and over again, you know. Sometimes Mammoth has some of that stuff, and you know, it all becomes part of just the vocabulary at the disposal of writers in general, you know, and you know, that's the way I look at it. And you find your voice in kind of what's, you know, you find your voice in all that, you know, and hopefully you can bring something interesting to the discussion, you know, in terms of all these other artists, and maybe you can, you know, kind of bring something new to the table. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Matthew? Any favorite writers that inspire you?
Yeah, the one that's springing to mind is a writer named Claire Labine. She's since passed on. She wrote the soap opera Ryan's Hope, and she also wrote for General Hospital.
Oh, heck yeah.
And one of my dream jobs is actually to be a soap opera writer.
Oh, yeah.
I would say would be like one of my biggest goals, because soap operas have a large canvas of characters.
That's right.
They take place over years and years of storytelling, and the only other place you can really do that is real life. So, she in particular did very sharp, very smart, and also family was a big deal. And so how the characters would interact, and something would happen on the canvas, and it would impact the richest man in town, and it would impact the smallest, youngest child. And you'd see kind of the ripple effect across the canvas as characters would tell each other what had happened to a particular character. And that kind of level of connection on the canvas, that just gives me goosebumps. And so that kind of storytelling is what I aspire to do.
Oh, absolutely. I'm kind of hearing that art imitates life a little bit, because you're looking for the rhythms and the dialogue, as well as the true stories of our lives as they continue. You know, maybe aren't wrapped up in a neat little bow. What about you, Allie?
I think the group of writers I look up to the most are probably Paula Vogel, Abe Kugler, Rob Askins, Daniel Talbot, and Tanya Barfield.
Okay.
And there's definitely specific things about all of their writing that I like and want to emulate. But for the most part, they have all written things that have made me kind of stop in my tracks.
Right.
And they're shows that I think about 2 weeks later at random, or something reminds me of them. And in all of those cases as well, I love the way that they talk about writing and talk about their process, and they all have reputations for being lovely to work with. And I think these are all things, both in my artistic work, but as a collaborator, those are things that I aspire to.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that when I'm talking to all of you, it makes me think that writers kind of give people a gift. So we just did Stage Left Theater just did these Shakespeare monologues last night that broadcasted, and I felt like Shakespeare was so wonderful for giving us all of this incredible work to continue to dig into, maybe 400 or 500 years later. What do you see your legacy being as a writer, Matthew?
Oh, Lord. Hopefully people will say he entertained us, he was kind while he did it, and you hopefully people come away uplifted at the end. Even if it's a sad story, there's some kind of a I feel better for having witnessed that moment that he shared with us.
Yeah. What about you, Malcolm?
So it's a deep question.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I hope people are entertained and moved by my work. You know, but I think a big part of my legacy is teaching.
Yeah.
You know, I think that kind of, you know, the success of my students and success both writing and just kind of, you know, having this, you know, a happy life and, you know, just kind of, you know, just being successful in life, I think is important to me, and it's something that I value in terms of my overall legacy. Yeah.
Right, because writing helps you have a happy life.
It can. You're right. It doesn't guarantee it, right?
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
but you know, you hope it does.
Yeah, we hope. But we have to do it anyway, right?
That's true. No, that's
Can't
true.
stop. What would
That's
happen
true.
if we stopped?
That's
oh my
right.
goodness,
That's
everything
right.
would end, right? I don't know. Allie, what about you? What do you think will be your legacy as a writer?
I think the most important moments I have had as an audience member are the few times that I've watched something and just felt seen. And I hope that one human being watches something that I write and feels that way. Because I think if you can have that moment with one person, whether it's like a silly comedy or a very serious drama, it's really important. So if it's more than one person, amazing. But if I can just give that moment to one other human, that would be great.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
great.
Absolutely. Well, how do you decide what's the right festival or what's the right competition to enter your script to, Malcolm?
Oh, it's a good question. So the information's out there in terms of what's prestigious,
Right.
you know, so, you know, just Google the stuff, right? But, you know, I think, you know, Matthew mentioned this, I think Allie mentioned this, you know, it's important to just throw the net wide.
Okay.
Because one thing you're doing when you entering competitions and placing in competitions is that you're kind of building a pedigree for yourself, you know. It's for better for worse, people are looking, it builds your confidence, but also it builds other people's confidence in you.
Oh, yeah.
And so for better for worse, people, you know, respond to, you know, contests and things like that, co-signing you.
Sure.
And so, you know, I think it's important if you think you have a shot at a competition, you should enter it. And if you win it, then that's another feather in your cap. You keep going and going and going, and you know. So I think that, you know, obviously, you know, apply to the big fellowships, the big, you know, kind of writing labs, the big competitions, but also there's everything in between that I think is important as well.
Okay. How do you know what to submit to, Matthew? You're submitting every day.
Yeah.
Well, the first time I was doing it, I was submitting all over, and I was paying submission fee after submission fee, and I was like, okay, this is not going to be like sustainable. So then I got a little more picky with at least the fees, but it's kind of a combination of, do I have something that fits their material?
Right.
If it's a prompt or something like that, is it a prompt I think I could come up with? Fellow playwright and I are still mad because one of the best prompts we ever came across was it had to be a 10-minute play, and you had to use a stack of red construction paper. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic, and then we didn't get in, and so we're still upset about it. But also, like, as you're building naturally your connection with other writers, submit to the things that everyone's submitting to, just because that way when you're all rejected, you're all like, hey, you're all hanging out at the bar afterward, yep, got it too, and stuff like that. And then if someone does get in, you're like, yes, you got in. But at the same time, you're like, yes, you got in. So that camaraderie there too. And then, like, if I try to, if I don't fit, or if it's somebody that I respect, I'll still say, okay, I'm submitting to this, you bring your A game, or hey, I don't fit this at all, but you need to submit to this, please submit to this. I've even said to some people, if you don't submit to this, we can't talk anymore, because I'm going to be upset with you. But so, I mean, that kind of, again, that camaraderie, that building up, everybody, lifting everyone up at the same time type of a thing. And then just, if you think you should do it, you should do it. If you don't think you should do it, you should probably still do it.
Oh, I thought that was going to go another way. I was like, if you don't think you should do it, you shouldn't do it. And I was like, yes, that works for me.
But if you don't think you should do it, you should probably ask yourself why,
Right.
submit, and then if you go back the next year, see what they picked, and then be like, okay, I'm coming for you.
Ooh, I like it. What do you think, Allie?
I agree with everything that's been said, and I think the only thing I have to add is if something feels too good to be true or too high of a price, to check with your writer friends.
Right.
Because a good way to kind of call things out is to be like, hey, this feels a little odd, or do you know anyone who's done this? Have you done this? And sometimes people will be like, oh my God, it's amazing. And sometimes they'll be like, oh no, a friend of a friend, that's really it's not worth the money. So I agree with everything that's being said and would add, talk to your friends if you want to double check if something feels worth it.
I love that, because we have a great community and we can protect each other and look out for and encourage each other.
Right.
So I'm going to turn it over to Juan now, who has some questions from the audience.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here today. The first question is kind of just for some people out there. Can you explain, Malcolm, because you've brought it up a couple times, what is a fellowship and what are these labs that are not film festival related things that are out there, and where do they find them?
Okay, great. So a lot of television networks and the big kind of broadcast networks have fellowships, and they're kind of outreach for new talent. Sometimes they're diversity based, sometimes they're not. But Disney has one, CBS has one, Fox has one, and you can just Google this stuff. All the kind of major blogs kind of list the fellowships every year, but they're mentorship programs basically. And they take you under their wing, and you meet several times a month, and some of them are direct pipelines into writers' rooms. So the CBS mentoring program, a good many of their fellows go directly into writers' rooms. And so so some of these fellowships are pipeways into writers' rooms. HBO, and so that's the TV fellowships, but they're also screenwriting fellowships. And so some of them are pipelines into relationships with studios and production companies. So Warner Brothers has one, kind of with HBO, and it's a pipeline into kind of meeting people at HBO, and then also, I know at one point they had a director's fellowship, and you would direct, their fellows would direct, kind of shows that would end up on a digital platform on HBO. So so these are like real opportunities and kind of real like things that you can put your energy into that kind of lead to direct results in terms of integrating yourself into the machine, right? Into Hollywood. And so those are the fellowships that I'm talking about. And then there's also labs, which Sundance has a lab, and so in a similar vein, the labs help you develop a work, but they're also similar to the fellowships in that they connect you to the industry, and you get introduced to various production companies and various networks.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they're pretty amazing.
And Matt, the second part goes to you. Is there something similar for that in the theater world for you and Allie? Because I know both of you tap into that.
If it is, I haven't come across it. I'm sure there are opportunities, but especially right now with the pandemic, everything's kind of up in the air in the theater, and they're figuring out what to come back to. There's I can't speak to that as knowledgeably as someone else probably could.
Allie, do you have any input on that?
There's a few like writers' residencies or fellowships and intensives. A lot of them are agent submissions only. I know that, or they're like age capped. So I know Ensemble Studio Theater has a under 30 program. I think the Public Theater has an under 30 program. But there's also smaller opportunities. Something I'm a part of right now is a seasonal intensive program. So it's a mini writers group that meets for a season, and it's at the Workshop Theater in New York. It's free to apply. I forget when the next round of applications will come out, but it'll probably be around 6 weeks or something. And because of the pandemic, it's all over Skype and Zoom, so you don't have to be based in New York to apply. So that's a great one to look at too.
Yeah, and another thing to look at is the O'Neill Playwrights Festival, which has launched a lot of playwrights. It's kind of it's a development festival, new plays, but so that might be another one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, the next question is, do you prefer to write for a specific festival, or do you write a script and then find the right festival for that script?
Everyone's looking at me. Okay. Kind of a little of both. Again, it kind of depends on if it's something that sparks creativity. But I'm trying to write as much as possible, so I usually will have something, it'll shake an idea loose that I'll be like, okay, let's see what to do with that. But really no preference. It kind of, actually, like, there have been in the early days of the pandemic, there were like some competitions where you had to like do 5 or 6 ingredients, and some people did really well with it. I myself, with everything else going on, I was like, this is not for me. And I could do it, but I just was not in a place where I needed to throw in like a cookie dough recipe and then a box of Kleenex and then something else. And you could do it, but it was just kind of like, okay, that by the time you get to the 7th or 8th element, I'm like, okay, I'm getting mad now. You're just throwing things, or you're looking around the room to see what else can we put in this competition. So people can do it, and people can do it well. I was not in a space to work on it at that time.
Sure. Just really quickly, just to add to what Matthew's saying, I think that you probably never want to write in a vacuum when it comes to like competitions and things like that, because a lot of these competitions, to Matthew's point, kind of have, requirements, parameters, stuff like that. But if you can, to Matthew's point, if you can find a good mix of your voice and kind of, the requirements of, those competitions or fellowships, I think that's kind of the best combination.
And Allie?
I tend to do kind of a mix of both. There's definitely things that start ideas first, and once things are solid enough, I'm looking for the right festivals, the right competitions to sort of give them a home, the same way I'm looking for collaborators for them. And then I use a lot of like short film prompts and short play prompts when I'm feeling kind of blocked and stuck and want to keep writing. Sometimes I end up submitting them, and sometimes no one should read them, but the prompt can help shake stuff loose.
Well, wonderful. Well, thank you to everybody who tuned in to our panel today, and there will be more throughout the rest of the year. And thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for coming in, one from New York and some in Spokane. And have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Thank you to our sponsors. This program is made possible by the support of a Saga grant from Spokane Arts. This has been a Spokane Film Project production in association with CMTV. Thank you.